what is the definition that you have that's outside of what's in the dictionary? That's what
We find in ourselves a desire to do something. That doesn't mean that God wants us to do it. I mean,
But
there are
then
many.
why would you deny children in a gay family to have those protections? Because there are tons of them.
Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Noah. So today we're going to watch and talk about a conversation between Matt Walsh and Jillian Michaels. I don't know if you know who Jillian Michaels is, but if you're old and decrepit like I am,
I love the young people.
and grew up watching cable television, she was like always in fitness ads for different exercise programs or fitness equipment. Anyway, so she has a show and Matt goes on her show and then they get into a conversation about gay marriage because Jillian Michaels is a gay woman. Matt Walsh is a heterosexual white male and very conservative. So Jillian Michaels is ripped, dude. I'm pretty sure she could beat Matt up in a fight, honestly.
This is my country.
But I don't think she could beat him in a debate. So let's find out. Please like and subscribe. Show the algorithm that you like this kind of stuff, and you'll see more of this kind of stuff. All right, let's get into it.
Y'all ready for this?
But I've looked up the definition of marriage. I don't see it say. I mean, I got Wiki. I went to the well on this one. Merriam-Webster. Like, what am I missing? So Merriam-Webster.
What does Webster say?
The state of being united as spouses in a consensual and contractual relationship recognized by law. Like, what am I missing about? Because I've heard you get very deep into the definition. It's a procreative union. But then you also get into the conversation of what about the married couples that don't have kids? Like, tell me what's the deep offense? I just want to understand it because.
Well, here's what I would say. You said, well, how does
Is it religious?
well, it's part of my faith. I don't deny that. I also think that what I'm saying, even if I didn't have a deep Christian faith, my stance on marriage and the family, I think, would probably be the same. Now, it's impossible to say that because you take my faith away from me, I'm a totally different person. So who knows what I would say. So your question was, well, how does someone have a gay couple? How does that impact my family? And the answer is that an individual. So you, for example,
Take me.
right? You individually don't have any impact on me or on my family, obviously. We're not walking around every day. We don't like get up in the morning and we're like, oh man, Jillian Michaels is we can't
Married.
can't make breakfast this morning because it's not, that's of course not what's happening, and I would never claim that. The issue is it's a societal. It's an issue in society. It's a societal wide issue that when a society abandons what has always been recognized as the definition and meaning and purpose of the marital union, when they abandon what marriage is, that has vast implications for society. And
then because I'm saying everything I find is matrimony or wedlock, culturally, often legally recognized union between two people called spouses. It establishes rights and obligations between them, as well as them and their children, if any, between them and their in-laws. What is the definition that you have that's outside of what's in the dictionary? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to understand. Is it religious? And then which religion? Because there's different definitions of marriage per polygamy, this common law marriage, group marriage. I mean, that's
because marriage codifies, protects, sanctifies the inherently procreative union of a man and a woman.
okay.
And
That's for you, though.
it's first of all, it's not just for me. It's for society since the dawn of human civilization until approximately 15 seconds ago.
So real quick, I just want to say, she's reading from new definitions, okay? The old definition of marriage wouldn't have said two people called spouses. It's not what it is. So here's the old definition of marriage, okay?
Okay!
Webster's dictionary defined marriage as the legal union of a man and a woman. It's what marriage always has been. The dictionaries have updated their definitions to accommodate, but that's not what the definition always was. So I just wanted to drop that real quick because she keeps going back to the definitions. The left loves to manipulate language. Just because you're changing definitions to accommodate like a political agenda doesn't mean that you're actually changing what the thing is. Like if I were to hold up my dog and say, "This is my dog," and then grab my cat and I go, "This is also my dog now." Is my cat a dog? No. Is marriage the union of a man and a woman? Or is it just a union between two consenting adults? Because now you say it is, even though throughout all of history, it was never that.
I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
Okay, let's get back into it.
There's something very real here. Like, this is the way I've tried to explain it, explain my view. That let's say society were to come crumbling down around us, and we wake up amid the ashes with no memory of anything that happened before, and we're rebuilding from scratch. It's like fundamentally from the ground up. We have to rebuild everything, right? And we look around and we see like the survivors, the people, and we see that they kind of have a tendency to pair up, and we see that there's this one pairing that has this funny habit of creating people. There's this one type of pairing that only this type can create a person.
Okay.
I think we would say, well, that's different. This is a different kind of thing because it's different from these other relationships because it has this capacity that no other relationship does. And that capacity is not, it's not a small thing. It's not incidental. It's not superficial. I mean, it creates people. In fact, that the further existence
Sex creates people.
Right,
I mean,
sex
Right.
between a
A
man and a woman.
one-night stand can create a person.
Right.
I would say a marriage
Yes, but
nurtures a child. In a loving marriage with kids, you're there to love them. You're there to guide them. I can teach my son
Right,
how
and
to
that-
take risks, although I do appreciate the necessity of a father's role. And that is a huge thing. I don't disagree with you on that. I'm not trying to take that away from you. But two idiots having a one-night stand can have a baby.
Sure. And exactly. And that I think only proves my point that this union, this coupling of a man and a woman is loaded with implications and with a power that no other type of relationship, let me finish.
Yeah, you're right.
No
Go ahead.
other type of relationship has.
Sure.
And so I think it makes sense for society to say, well, this is a different kind of thing. And this is frankly more important than any of these other kinds of relationships because
Right.
of the power that it has. And so we are going to call that something else, and we are going to protect it in a way that we don't protect other relationships because those other relationships do not have this capacity. And for thousands of years of human history, that's what marriage did. That was the point of marriage. It was to codify and protect the inherently and uniquely procreative union of a man and a woman.
Okay.
A union that by its nature can procreate. Although of course we know that there are plenty of cases where they don't.
They don't have kids, right?
Right.
And
But-
I would say that it's not marriage that makes a baby. It's sex between a man and a woman that makes a baby. And
Yeah,
anybody
marriage
can
doesn't
do
make the
that,
baby. Right. You're right.
married or not. And
Marriage is there to protect and solidify that family for when the baby is created. Of course, the marriage doesn't create the baby, but the marriage is there very much there for the baby.
But then why would you deny children in a gay family to have those protections? Because there are tons of them. There are over 1,100 rights that come with marriage. I'm a tax-paying American. Why would I be denied that? I mean, the list is like insane. It's everything from making spousal medical decisions, being able to jointly adopt a kid, joint filing of taxes. I mean, the list is so long. Property tax exemptions. It's 1,100. And these are things that I do want to be able to protect my wife when I die, to pass our things on to her, for her to be able to visit me whenever, if I'm sick, for her to be able to say DNR if I'm dying, and vice versa. And then there's all kinds of things that protect kids. Like, what if I was a scumbag and I don't want to pay for the 2 kids that I had from my previous relationship? Like, I legally have to do that. Like, well, if we were married, I did not marry this woman, but I protect my kids. But imagine if I was a scumbag, if we were married, there's laws that I have to take care of them. And if she said, well, you know, the boy child's mine, I would have no right to the child if I didn't have the rights that are provided. She could take my son and boogie. So there's so many protections that this provides for the kids and for people who love each other that I can't understand. I get why you feel like, hey, you're threatening what I have that's special. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. And I wish there was a way for me to make you
But
not feel diminished.
it's not you threatening, it's the societal recognition of it as a marriage. They're trying to equate it with what I would consider to be true marriage. That becomes the threat, if you will, if that's the language you want to use.
I don't know. That's how I'm interpreting it from you, is that it feels like a threat to the things that you hold dear. And it feels like, where does it stop? I'm interpreting how I think you feel. So please correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it is because the institution of the family. The institution of the family is the bedrock of human civilization. Marriage is the bedrock of the family. And so anything that threatens the family, yes, it does. It threatens the things I hold dear, because I hold civilization dear. And so in that sense, yes.
But you're talking, okay, now we're talking, if we get into the conversation of like a hierarchy of family, right? And sure, I'm not going to be the one who's going to disagree with you. Then in a perfect world, and people can get pissed all they want. In a perfect world, kid would have a mom and a dad. I understand how important those 2 roles are. Trust me. Which arguably, I was like, I don't, I wanted to adopt a child. My ex wanted to have one. I don't want to take that away from her. I'm not sorry. Kids, both of them are the apple of my eye. That said, it was of deep concern to have a boy without a father. I don't disagree at all. And have a brother who's a very dear friend of the family that's been a father figure. Is it a father? No. However, if we get into the hierarchy of it, what about the dad that never showed up? What about the dad that took off? What about the dad that was an alcoholic? Well, I know I didn't have a super duper dad. It's better now, but I know a lot of people. Like, I was just this morning with Brigham Bueller, who is just a great guy. I'm not sure if you know him. He's on Rogan all the time. Foster kid. And I was talking about speaking with you. He's like, well, love is the most important thing. I was like, I would say that. That would be my argument, because from a hierarchical perspective, I'll give you the top of the mountain. But then I think love, and that would be, a marriage without love, I think you lose too. So if you said man, woman, love, I would go, well, yes, I'm with you, number 1. But when in the world are you getting this unicorn society? Like, your house might be that, and that's wonderful. But I would tell you, I don't think the majority are. And I think providing kids with love and structure is the most important thing if you don't have this perfect scenario.
See, so she does a lot of, well, kids can be born into this bad scenario or that bad scenario. One thing I notice with her is she tries to validate her position by saying, well, what about these people doing bad things? Like, well, what about 2 dummies getting pregnant and having a kid and they're not married? It's like, right, that's a bad thing. That's not good.
There should be a new, stronger word like badrong or badong. Yes.
Why does that mean that we should change the definition of marriage? And it's like, what? Because other people do things that aren't good for society, we should just allow anything that's not good for society. Just because some people can do bad things doesn't mean we should just allow all of the bad things, you know? There's already so many issues in our society killing the nuclear family. And the last thing we need to do is stack something else on top of it. Like the birth rate right now is plummeting because people aren't getting married, people aren't having children. Do you think redefining marriage is healthy for society? And I'll just be straight up, man. The more that we validate homosexuality in our society, the more it encourages it. That's just the way it goes. When something is stigmatized, and I don't mean necessarily illegal, which I don't believe that gay marriage should be legal, honestly. When something is stigmatized or taboo in a society, people tend to do less of it. This article by The Hill says 1 in 4 high school students identify as LGBTQ. That is wild. 25%. It says here, among high school students, 12.2% identified as bisexual, 5.2% as questioning, 3.9% as other, 3.2% as gay or lesbian, 1.8% said they didn't understand the question. So the more we encourage this, the more that people dabble in these relationships that aren't reproductive, the worse it is for society. And I like the fact that she says she's not denying, you know, that it's important to have a father in the home. And then she says in a perfect world, it'd be good for a kid to have a mom and a dad. And that's awesome. That's awesome that she's saying that, because so often on the left, which she doesn't seem like super far left, but she's obviously LGBTQ or whatever.
A, B, D, C, Q, F, P, A9, Q, poop.
But we just hear a complete denial and dismissal of gender roles and the necessity of having a man and a woman. But the fact that she actually acknowledges that is good. It's like, yeah, kids need a mom and a dad. But then she goes on to say,
But I can teach my kid to take risks.
and what she's referencing is earlier in their conversation at a different part, Matt brought up the fact that dads are important because they teach their children how to take risks in a healthy way and things like that. And so out of one side of her mouth, she's saying, you know, it's important to have a mom and a dad. But then out of the other side, it's, I can teach my kid those things. It's like, yeah, maybe, but not to the extent that a dad can. It's so important for kids to have a father figure. Like something like 71% of high school dropouts come from a fatherless home. 85% of adolescents in prison come from fatherless homes. 90% of runaway children, fatherless homes. Children are more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol if there's no father in the home. It is so important to have a healthy, balanced family with a mother and a father to raise the kids properly. It's never going to be the same with 2 women or 2 men because both roles are important. I will say, and don't misunderstand me, please, mothers are important. I believe that we have equal importance in society. I really do. I just think that we're made for different roles. That's all. But I will say that children that grow up in a home without a mother and are raised by their father are actually more likely to be successful than children that are raised without a father by their mother. I mean, that's the importance of a father. And that's not taking away from the importance of a mother whatsoever. I just really want to emphasize the fact that fathers are very important. Jillian can teach her kid how to take risks all she wants, but it will never match what a dad can teach their child. Anyway, let's continue.
And allowing gay parents to get married is so much better for the psychology of their children. And I think it's a fantasy world to think they won't have kids.
Well, they won't have kids. That's part of the point.
Well, my ex had a kid.
But in a gay relationship, you're not going to have kids in the sense that a man and a woman create kids.
True,
right?
but she created a kid with a
Right.
friend of the
And
family.
I don't think you're correct that in so many scenarios, this ideal that I'm talking about is not realized. I mean, we just talked about the black community, 70%, 80% fatherless rate. White community, like I said, I think it's 30 or 40%. It's rising. It's a crisis in its own right. I think the way to address that is not to just give up on the concept of marriage and family as it's been understood for thousands of years, but to solidify and protect what we have. And I mean, it has been thousands of years.
But men have had numerous wives too in different cultures. Like, if you go, but what book are we talking about? And forgive me, I'm not well versed on different religions because my parents.
Polygamy.
Like,
Polygamy has.
Didn't Abraham Sarah had numerous wives, and then hence the reason you had like Ishmael and Israel and all this chaos because there were numerous wives.
Yeah, you'll find historically.
I'm an idiot on this stuff, but like.
Well, here's what I'll say. You'll find historically that polygamy has been. There have been cultures that practice polygamy. Even now today, you'll find that. But, and I'm certainly not a polygamist myself, and I don't condone it.
Might be missing out.
No, I don't think I am. I'm quite happy. But,
I'm kidding.
but here's the point that those marriages were still fundamentally procreative, and so it was still the recognition of this basic deep truth that I'm talking about, even in societies that practice polygamy. In fact, for them, procreation was so much the point that that's part of the reason why they had polygamy, was so they could create even more kids. And if you go back far enough in time into human history, when there weren't that many people on Earth,
why be married if it's all about having kids?
I mean, well, you could argue, if you go back far enough in history, you could argue that that way back when that polygamy served a purpose in like populating the Earth, and we don't. So but it's always been that fundamental purpose. There has never been a society until ours right now that has said, well, actually, marriage has nothing to do with procreation at all. That society has never existed, unless you can think of an example.
No, there's rights that pertain to the kids, but my ex procreated, but also I adopted a kid. We adopted a kid. And what happens to all these protections then if you hypothetically got your way?
Well, I mean, you'd have tough individual situations like that. I don't deny it. And when you allow for the institution of marriage to be essentially disbanded, as it has been in this country,
I don't see that, Matt.
Any effort to...
I don't see that allowing people to be a part of something that is special. I don't see how that disbands it.
How would you define marriage?
Well, I mean, I would go with these literal definitions. So, the state of being united as spouses in a consensual and contractual relationship recognized by law. That is literally how I define it.
She's really relying on Webster right now, dude.
Also called matrimony or wedlock, culturally and often legally recognized union between two people called spouses. And yes, I know historically the spouses were man and woman, but
there you go.
It establishes rights and obligations between them, as well as between them and their children.
Do you recognize at least that removing the family, removing the creation of children from the definition entirely means that you have a definition there that is, would you at least recognize that it is that it is unprecedented in the history of human civilization?
I guess so. I mean, I would have to go, I don't know. I know that there's been homosexuality throughout history. I would presume to, I guess so. I've done zero homework on this, so if somebody knows better than me, please leave it in the comments. But at the same time, women were getting raped, slavery was legal. Like, there's a lot of things we had to evolve out of. So, if we talk
but I don't think marriage was one of those things.
But marriage
was, again, it's the foundation of human civilization. Slavery and rape are not.
Okay, but your definition, and this is where I guess we would have to agree to disagree, is your definition is copulation. To me, that's copulation. Marriage is this. And so to me, it's about protecting
That's not the entire definition.
Of marriage? Or of making a...
That is a procreation, I'd prefer to say, is not the entire definition of marriage, but it is an essential component of what marriage is.
What about people that don't have kids, that are married? I don't see you going after their marriage. Or are you? I mean, did I miss it?
No, I certainly wouldn't, because that does not challenge the inherent nature of the thing. So you could have couples that...
But you're saying the inherent nature is procreation.
Right.
What if they're not procreating?
Right, and there are... It's like... I could say that it's natural, it's in our nature for a human being to be born with two legs. there are humans that are born without them. It doesn't mean they're not human, but there's something has gone wrong, and so they were not able to fully participate in that aspect of being a human, unfortunately. But that doesn't challenge the nature of what it means to be human. And I would say that one of the the nature of marriage is procreative, and even though you have men and women who get together and turns out they can't have kids, tragically, it doesn't challenge the
Who
nature
may
of what
not
marriage is.
want to have kids. Do they get their rights stripped away? And also, I would simply say, being a person of faith, obviously you believe in God. Why would God create something that is not okay?
Okay!
Somehow, unless if you're an atheist or you're agnostic, then maybe you could say like this is a freak show. But if you believe in God, why would she, whatever, they?
He.
Did you have it?
Let's do he.
let's do
She.
God. So we don't get into too much trouble.
Oh, Jesus,
God.
help these
'Cause I
people.
say she, you'll say he. Let's settle on God. I'm actually genderless with my God. Okay, moving on, Jill. Point being, why would God allow for gay people to exist?
Are you Christian?
I'm totally agnostic. I would. I
You're
wasn't.
agnostic, but you believe in God.
I believe in more. Agnostic, okay, so my understanding of atheist, I don't believe in anything. Agnostic, I do believe in something. I don't know exactly what it looks like. I wasn't raised with an organized religion because my mother was Jewish and my father was Greek Orthodox. So I think both of them felt like, what,
Father was
she'll figure
based.
it out. I love science. I like listening to astrophysicists talk about the universe, and that stuff really, to me, is proof of God when I hear about that stuff. But it's I think there's more. I think everything's just far too awesome for there not to be some creating energy. I don't judge people for their religion,
It's good.
whatever it may be. None of my business. Don't care. Respect all of it. But if you are a believer, why would God create something that's wrong? Historically speaking, even if you look at the animal kingdom, there have been gay animals, and they take care of orphaned animals. Like, maybe that's why people are gay. I don't know. I adopted a child because I felt something in me telling me this is what I needed to do. Calling, I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, the only thing I would say to that is what I would say in my faith is that just because we find in ourselves a desire to do something, that doesn't mean that God wants us to do it. I mean, there are many examples, and we
Right.
could list examples of things that people want to do that they shouldn't do. Does that mean that God ordains it just because they find that desire in them? I would say no. In fact, even let's take a married man who might experience the desire to have an affair. He didn't choose to want that, but he wants it. And did that come from God? I would say that it didn't. And in fact, what God wants in that case is for you to reject that desire that you have and put it on, and
But that's like
stay
saying
true to
you want a
your
black
duties.
person to reject being black.
No! No! What?
Gay people, a lot of us are just born this way.
Oh.
And to be honest with you, I grew up very homophobic, and I would have taken any other path, Matt, trust me, for how unpopular that may sound.
This is also a different conversation from
Yeah, gay families. I know.
from marriage.
Maybe I should, yes, it is, because I've interpreted it as a segue into like God would want you to reject it, and I would tell you that I think people would be so miserable who are inherent genetically, whatever it may be. I think there's a genetic component for sure, because it's not really something you can, at least for me and everybody I know, it's not a choice. It's, and also I think there's more harm done by rejecting who you are than being who you are. Whereas if you're in a marriage and you cheat, I don't see anything good coming out of that.
So with regard to her, why would God create something that isn't good? There's an endless amount of things that wouldn't be considered good or right.
Badrong or badong. Yes,
that people still have a desire to do. If it's something that you shouldn't do, then you quash those desires. I used to be a serious heroin and meth addict. God created me. Why would I have a desire for drugs if God didn't want me to do them? And it's because we have a fallen nature.
Nature.
We're born into sin. You know, in society, homosexuality used to be considered very abnormal. It was so taboo. It was so stigmatized. And that's the way it was. Like, that was the norm. Okay. But, you know, people that are born into kind of like this era, this generation, they don't understand that because we've just validated it so much. People in our society are obsessed with the idea of like having these individual freedoms. Like, well, I should be able to do that because I want to do that. It's like there's all kinds of things people want to do that they cannot do by law. If people want to be in same-sex relationships, it's not what I want. It's not what I want for people. But I do think that in America, grown adults should be able to make those decisions for themselves. Does that mean it shouldn't be taboo? Absolutely not. I just don't think we should use the law to tamp down on it. Now, that doesn't mean that we should redefine marriage to accommodate homosexuality. Marriage is what it is. It's between a man and a woman, period. Even Obama in the past, the man that's held up as like the God amongst men on the left, didn't really support gay marriage. We can see right here in this Time magazine article, marriage is between a man and a woman. Obama says in an interview on Chicago Public Television during his U.S. Senate campaign, adding, "But what I also believe is that we have an obligation to make sure that gays and lesbians have the rights of citizenship that afford them visitation to hospitals, that allow them to transfer property to each other, to make sure they're not discriminated against on the job." He says, "Homosexuality is not a choice for the most part. It is innate." Obama distinguishes marriage from other civil rights, saying, "We have a set of traditions in place that I think need to be preserved." Would he say that today? I highly doubt it. But it just goes to show that it was a different time. Society didn't view marriage the way that they view it now. Even the people like Obama knew that marriage was between a man and a woman. You know what Obama says about same-sex couples when he says he also believes that we have an obligation to make sure gays and lesbians have the rights of citizenship that afford them visitation to hospitals, that allow them to transfer property to each other, and things of that nature. You know, that's a conversation that can be had, but that doesn't mean redefining marriage. And then lastly, one thing that I think people need to take a step back and really think about is the fact that we're so focused on these individual rights and freedoms, but why isn't anybody thinking about the right of the child to have a mother and a father? Like, if we know that it's better for children to be born into a family with a mother and a father, then why are we denying them the ability to have like a whole healthy family that we know is statistically likely to help them grow up to be a functioning member of society? If we know that it's hard on children to not have a mother and a father, then why do we ignore that just to accommodate these couples? We treat children just like they're commodities or pets. It doesn't make sense to me. Everyone's focused on individual rights, but nobody cares about duties. It's like we have a duty to society. We don't just get to do everything we want to do because it's the way we feel and it's what we desire. Sometimes we have to repress the things that aren't good for us and that aren't good for the rest of society. If we're talking adoption, do I think it would be better for children to be raised in a loving home, even if it is a same-sex couple? I mean, that's a conversation that can be had because, you know, if they're in a foster home and they have nobody, I would assume it's better to have somebody. But if we're talking about letting people buy children and get pregnant so they can raise the children as a same-sex couple without the father in the home, I just don't see how that's not more of a concern. Anyway, so thank you guys so much for hanging out. Much respect to Jillian Michaels. I think she was really friendly, and I just love to see a conversation between two people with opposing views that's like so healthy and respectful. It'd be nice to see more of that in our society. Obviously, I think Matt Walsh came out on top. Anyway, you guys, let me know what you think about the video in the comments below. Do you think Matt came out on top? Do you think Jillian came out on top? Do you think that gay marriage is genuine marriage? Do you think it's good for society? Do you think it's detrimental to society? Yeah, just let me know your thoughts below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys soon.